Hi everyone, today I'm going to talk about is Carnival stock or Carnival Corporation, is the company, going to go bankrupt? And obviously the stock has gone down absolutely huge. It's a stock that I currently own as well. It's a stock that I've held for about 2 years now. And really buying back in 2018, I felt like the stock was a little bit of a discount value. If only I knew what would happen 2 years down the line, but I felt like the stock had pulled back and I thought it was on some bad news that would be okay. And if the stock was to go down, I'll add in a little bit more. And that was back in 2018. And I was also trying to pick up some little bit of that dividend as well that it had back in 2018, which was at the time about a 4% yield. And while holding this stock to 2020 where we're at right now, I thought this stock is like the most unlucky stock. Like everything that could go wrong with this company has gone wrong, and it was hit by a lot of like oil prices, a lot of conflicts that was going on during that time. We had kind of what was happening with Korea. We had a few ports in Cuba closed, and that sort of little thing was chipping away at Carnival's corporation's business, but it was still doing okay. And I thought at some point, Carnival, this bad luck's going to go out the window. It's going to do absolutely well, and yeah, like the worst thing that could happen, a virus that shuts down pretty much the whole world and they can't operate, which is probably like worse than 2008 where sure people were still using them, not as many customers were using them, but it was still, operating. And now we got to here in 2020 where they're actually not operating at all, and obviously that's causing a bit of a headache for Carnival right now. So I'm going to look into what are the chances of Carnival actually going bankrupt right now, and then I'll kind of talk about my opinion at the end of what I'm doing with my shares right now. So at the moment it is trading at $8, which is absolutely insane. I can't believe it's down at $8, which is about an 88% discount from where it was at its all-time highs in January 2018. Now when we look at Carnival, what's going on? Like now it's not operating, what numbers are we kind of looking at Carnival? What's at the moment, how much is it costing them to still carry on going even though they're not operating? So the cost really right now, from what I can work out, and it's quite hard to do because obviously if you're on the inside you know exactly what you've managed to save money on, but we kind of, as investors, we don't really realise that until earnings. But it looks like costs are going to be something between 2 billion to 4 billion a quarter. Now 4 billion is probably the maximum. The only thing that it could increase on that is if there was a lot of like refunds, but it seems like a lot of customers are getting the cruises that they had planned in this sort of time frame, getting them like credited so they can use them later on, which is totally fine. But if Carnival are able to save a lot of money, because obviously they won't need as many things as when they're operating, so let's say that they manage to save on a few costs, then potentially they could be burning through about 2 billion a quarter. That's probably best guess estimate, but the safe guess would be to go somewhere in the middle and say that at the moment it's costing them about 3 billion a quarter to still carry on going right now. Now Carnival has recently just raised some money. We'll go through the money they've raised and look at how long we expect them to still go. So at the moment they've just raised 4 billion in bonds, which is at 11.5% rate, which I've got to say is very high. I think I read somewhere that it's going to cost them about 200 million a month or something to be paying that back. Insane, absolutely insane. It's a very high rate, but they've got 4 billion in bonds, 1.75 billion in notes, and also they've got 500 million issued in new stock, and previously on the balance sheet there was 500 million in cash. So overall that gives Carnival about 6.75 billion in cash, and like I say, if they're burning through 3 billion a quarter, that pretty much means that we're going to see Carnival just about get through 2 quarters and maybe a little bit more, depending on how well they're able to save money going forward. So if we look at Carnival right now, it looks like Carnival are pretty much safe to about September time, if we can guess about there. After September, then it gets kind of slightly more worrying, because then we're probably going to have to say either Carnival are going to go bankrupt or they're going to need to raise money. So kind of from Carnival's point of view, we need to see them back in operation at September time at the latest. Ideally, if they could do it, start slowly in July and then kind of get back to where they were in August, that'll be a massive help for Carnival. Now obviously if it was not to happen and this whole coronavirus lasted past August and we got to September, obviously Carnival would be in a little bit of trouble right there. And as well in the whole world, if the whole world isn't operating again by September, I don't know if it'll just be Carnival that will be in this situation. I think a lot of major companies, if they're not operating for that long and have a lot of money to pay out, I think a lot of them will be in problems in September time. Now, generally my kind of feel on this situation right now is that I expect things to start getting back to normal in June time. So I think, in my opinion, we'll start to have peaked out by then, and Carnival should be all right. So from my point of view, I see Carnival being safe at the moment, and the coronavirus kind of going past in June time, peaking, and things starting to come back to normal in June, especially July. So I see Carnival being okay at the moment, but there is certainly a lot of risk because, like I say, if we get to September, can they raise money? Otherwise, it's probably looking like BK for Carnival Corporation. Now, my overall opinion is I think a lot of people are asking questions because a few shareholders are getting a little bit nervous and say, should they sell out? A few people looking at it going, there's a lot of risk here, is there a lot of reward here? And my kind of opinion from here is that I'm definitely still holding my shares because I think they will make it through this. And there is risk here, there's definitely a lot of risk here, but from my kind of view is that if Carnival are going to make it through and this stock is priced at $8 and then it can kind of get back to where it's at, sure, long term we see Carnival recovering, and there's probably at least going to be a 3 times upside from these sort of prices long term. I think it will be a while to get back to the prices it were at, but buying at $8 there should be a 2 to 3% upside, which is quite a decent upside really from here. And like I say, I probably actually buy a few shares at $8 and then hold them and then maybe sell them off as a little bit profit and then carry on holding my old shares. Dividend wise, that's probably a little bit risky at the moment, and I won't guarantee a dividend for a while. It's probably going to have to cut that for a while and make sure it gets these expensive loans sorted out before it does go back to the dividend. But at some point it probably will return to a dividend, just like after it did in 2008. And long term, cruises will go back to normal. Everyone's going to return to cruises at some point. It might be a little bit slower because of the fear of getting, trapped on them ships if there was an outbreak, but I think it will return and Carnival will do well. I think they were also a little bit disrespected with how well it did in 2018 and 2019, and the share price didn't reflect on it. The share price hardly went up from in 2018. In fact, it went down. And 2018 and 2019, it put some decent numbers in there. The revenue and EPS grew decent. So, this stock could have been a $70 to $80 in 2018 and 2019. So it was a little bit disrespected there as well. There was some fantastic growth on the EPS and revenue front. And like I say, even if it posted 2018, revenue and EPS, going forward in, I won't say this year, but 2021, and it recovered there, that's still good numbers. And when you look at Carnival, you're getting it back at now, like I think it's something like 1992 prices. So if it's able to do 2008 revenue and EPS and the stock is priced at 1992 prices, it's not a bad risk to reward. So that's kind of my view on Carnival overall, and I hope you enjoy the video. As always, give it a like, subscribe if you haven't, and I'll see you in the next video.